who said something that he noticed an issue with FC Dallas?
Wait, if you're talking, are you talking about Matt Doyle or Jeff Reuter? Because Matt Doyle was only said there's locker room issues.
Somebody I don't remember
within Dallas.
It could have been Doyle.
Yeah, it probably was Doyle. He said there was locker room issues, but I mean, just something is just really off with this team. I mean, we saw them. I mean, we keep saying this. We saw them go toe to toe in the Champions League and almost make it to the final. We saw them have an impressive start, but I mean, it's just gone downhill from here. And I mean, from a guy who goes to we both go to FC Dallas. Me and Dan go to FC Dallas week in and week out, and we watch them, and we just feel like we're anticipating a loss. And I mean, Dan, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like a loss is coming almost every single week now?
Oh yeah, I mean, if they concede a goal in the first half, your automatic reaction is, oh, here we go again. They just drop their heads so easily. The morale within the team just seems so fragile.
It's poor. And for all you viewers who are outside of Dallas, as we do, we try to focus, every now and then on particular, and we're bringing up FC Dallas because FC Dallas going into the season was not expected to be just a playoff team, but expected to make
MLS
a deep
Cup
run.
Contender.
Yeah, a lot of people actually picked them to win it because they thought they're not going to get the Supporters Shield. It's just too much of a stranglehold on the club because there's so much pressure for them to succeed that to get to the playoffs. You get a hot club, Seattle, 10 minutes, ruin their season, and they go off and they win the MLS Cup. You're at home with the Supporters Shield. They thought, okay, a lot of pundits thought FC Dallas could flip that and do the vice versa, kind of, we'll coast through the playoffs, maybe get a 1 or 2 seed, not necessarily be where Toronto's at. But, I mean, this team has just fallen off the map.
I mean, there's also elements to the running as well. Were Dallas expected to get anything from tonight? No, absolutely not. That was Seattle's 10th win of the season at home. They're dominant. At the same time, Vancouver would have had their 10th win tonight. San Jose found a way to fight back. Last year, everything about Dallas was they could go into the 88th minute, 2-1 down, and you could guarantee they're going to pull a draw out or maybe even a win.
Yeah.
Now, if it's 1-0 after 5 minutes, you're like, well, what's this going to be like, 4-5-0?
Yeah, I mean, it's spot on, Dan. I mean, look at the rest of the league, and it's a question of like it's almost like the same thing as we're looking at U.S. soccer. Who is it to blame? I feel like we're gonna have to slowly start playing a blame game because I mean, is it Pareja's fault? Is it the management's fault for not helping him bring in more reinforcements? Is it the players' fault for almost looking like they're giving up? I mean, I genuinely don't know. Do you think it's the players maybe looking into the future? I think it was either Buzz or Peter. Peter just tweeted out on Third Degree account that players looking elsewhere might be distracted. Do you think those interests from overseas or even from Argentina, in the case of Urruti and Barrios, have played maybe a factor in how the team is kind of playing and gelling?
I mean, it wouldn't be beyond reason. Certainly, if a player was looking at potentially next week is their last game before the January transfer window, why should I go and get injured now? It's a valid concern.
And then you got the Kellen Acosta situation.
Yeah, Kellen's a strange. I mean, obviously that was heavily dependent on the US men's national team. He doesn't have that quite such an opportunity to really get in the shop window and impress people now. So maybe that's his chance gone. When I spoke to Dan Hunt recently, in the midst of that whole Barrios and Urruti situation, he said that FC Dallas have absolutely not received a bid for Kellen Acosta. So, I mean, where's the interest coming from?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird with these MLS rumors. But we need to change gears here and talk about something that we haven't talked about on the show here is the referee, illegal substitution, team sheet, Twitter this, Twitter that. Arman, you and I talked off the record on this issue quite a bit. But, Dan, let's get your take. FC Dallas played a player who's pulled off from the starting team sheet, introduced. This was Barrios. Tesho came, started, and then in the 88th minute, Barrios came onto the pitch. MLS Twitter sphere went crazy. They wanted the FC Dallas to be docked a point. You had Paul, what's his last name, Arman? Now I'm forgetting. Tenario. Give his account. He went on ESPN radio to go on. But Dan, I mean, fill us in from FC Dallas's perspective. What happened?
Yeah, so firstly, shout out to whoever runs Real Salt Lake's Twitter account. They had a great little joke about it today. If you look at their lineups, even with the late change to the lineup. So I had a chance to speak to Oscar. Buzz also had a chance to speak to Oscar. The feeling was that they were having a warm up. Barrios started feeling a bit of pain in his foot. There's a discussion going back and forth. Do you think you can still play through it? Barrios like, well, I would try, but there's too much discomfort. I can't start the game. He's already locked into the team sheet. The team sheet goes in an hour before the game. So Oscar sends the team admin with a team sheet, back with the team sheet to say, hey, we really need to pull Barrios out the lineup. We'd like to switch in Tesho, and then Barrios is going to go, take an early shower, suit up, and sit in the stand or whatever. And then the ref, it's a really crazy situation because it's totally inappropriate for a referee to do it, said, he can still sit on the bench. My understanding is that, the rule is once a team sheet is submitted to the referee, if you make a change to that for injury or illness, the player who's being removed from the starting lineup, he's done for the day. His day's work's over. If you do that within 50, you can also pull in another player as a replacement sub. So obviously away from home it's irrelevant, but at home you can say, hey Reggie, hey Paxton, suit up. You're going to sit on the bench in place. The referee misquoted a rule which says that if you do this within 15 minutes of kickoff, you lose that place on the bench. You'd have to go with 6. So this change occurred 22 minutes before kickoff, just where kickoff is 8 minutes past the hour for TV. So the referee has noted on the team sheet, this is, I think it was 3:46 at the time, or 3:48, whichever it was. And that he authorises this. He's the one that actually wrote the change in. It wasn't a case of someone presented him with the change. They've then gone back to Oscar. Oscar's looked at it and said, no, that's not right. So they've gone back. They've tried to confirm it. Come back again. They've gone through this like 3 times. So at that point, Michael Barrios is a part of the matchday squad as per the referee. And the International Football Associations Board, the group that make the laws of the game for FIFA, their decree is that they don't have the rules that MLS has. Those 2 rules that MLS have were competition specific. The referees say is final according to the IFAB, so it's kind of contradictory. So, their attitude is, well, he shouldn't be on the bench anyway, so if we're screwed with him on the bench, we're screwed with him in the game, right? Comes towards the end of the game. I still don't understand why. It seems kind of pointless to risk it, but, goalless, heavily defending, you bring on an attacking player who doesn't really do a whole lot. That makes perfect sense. Orlando, the kicker is Orlando saw this change beforehand, and they were okay with it. When they didn't get the win, they weren't okay with it. And they decided, hey, we deserve this forfeit for not scoring a goal. And then you have this whole social media situation where people are misquoting another FIFA law, which says that ineligible players being played should deem it as a forfeit. Well, everything with FIFA, and if you're ever strongly familiar with the laws of the game, everything is open to interpretation. So it's not just eligible, ineligible. there's several different layers of ineligibility. So there's a good example in USL earlier this year where I think it might have been Tulsa. Their opening fixture, they played a player that they hadn't bothered to register with the league. It's not a case of he was pulled out of the lineup. He wasn't eligible to play for anybody. He wasn't registered. The fees associated with registering, even though it's like $2, weren't paid. So they had to forfeit. That was the worst kind of ineligible player. Maybe, depending on morality, playing a suspended player may be worse. In terms of FC Dallas, it was a guy getting on the field for 6 minutes, didn't affect the game. It was a goalless draw. It definitely had playoff implications on both halves, so MLS don't want to interfere there. Common sense dictates you fine them. At worst, you do the typical thing for professional clubs, which is to let the result stand and then strip the point. Those were really the two options. The forfeit was never actually on the table. MLS in their approach, and the same thing they try and preach with VAR and everything else they do is we want to have no interference if we can help it. So that was the way it went. And in terms of the referee's culpability, which is another great argument for FC Dallas, do you really want to say the referee was blameless in it and then have FC Dallas come back and say, well, here's why he wasn't, we're going to really make a deal out of this? Do you want to let FC Dallas off completely and have potentially four teams complain about it?
It was messy. I mean, I remember me and Steven talked about it, and I thought at first I was like, I don't know, but I mean, then when you start to realize the situation, you're like, something is kind of wrong here. There's no way someone would, I feel like, willingly just
do it,
disobey a rule. Exactly. And then you saw Orlando fans upset, RSL fans upset, San Jose fans upset. I mean, everyone in the league upset over. I mean, it was just such an odd situation, and the Paul seemed to run away with the story, and just, I mean, we heard him talk on the Salt Lake radio, Steven, and we thought he wasn't that confident when he was.
He backtracked, and what you and I discussed, now that we know kind of more of the facts, there was something off between FC Dallas, the referee, and the situation. Because is the referee's job not to say he can't bring him on? There was some sort of communication between that, and I think Paul, who did a good job uncovering the story, who probably was tipped off. Yeah, congratulations. But then he started to introduce his own opinion, and it started to just confuse everybody. And go on.
He's a former Orlando Sentinel reporter. He has a very vested interest in it. I'm not going to say that any of us don't, because we're all Dallas people that follow FC Dallas. But there's a time to be objective and subjective, and the subjectivity came out.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a bad look for the league. Now the league, thankfully, has the U.S. to have failure, so nobody really cares about the story anymore. They could the U.S. is leading the charge when it comes to. I mean, everybody's commenting to the Premier League coverage on NBC. They were talking about the U.S. So I mean, it's typically you see it's only Premier League talk, but
I mean, it's even back in the UK, it's been a big story. It shouldn't happen, quite simply.
Yeah.
I mean, my final take on it was, I mean, it seemed like no one else would welcome the an opposing opinion of saying, hey, maybe something else is wrong here. I felt like it was just a witch hunt by especially the Salt Lake, Orlando, San Jose coalition that all had like a vested interest in making the playoffs and whatnot, and that's when I think it started to take fire and take off. I mean, we'll see if the point really affects them. It knocked out Orlando, but I didn't think Orlando was making the playoffs anyway. But when it comes to Dallas, I mean, will it affect them? Will it not? I mean, you will have outrage if they make it with just that point. But I mean, at this stage, I feel like it's gonna be up to. I think each team has their own needs to get their job done. Is if